So let's continue talking about Kohlberg's model of moral reasoning. So remember, we talked about the pre-conventional level, where it's pretty much saying, will I be better off if I do this? The conventional model that kind of says to the person, will I be following the rules if I do this? And the post-conventional level, where will I be behaving ethically regardless of what others may think? Even if there's not a rule or I'm going against the rule, will I be behaving ethically with regard to my culture? And let's look at a moral dilemma. So have you think about this. So here's the dilemma. In Europe, Maggie was near death from a special kind of cancer. There was one drug that the doctors thought might save Maggie. It was a form of radium that a druggist in the same town had recently discovered. The drug was expensive to make, but the druggist was charging 10 times what the drug cost him to make. He paid $200 for the radium and charged $2,000 for a small dose of the drug. Maggie's husband, Heinz, went to everyone he knew to borrow the money, but he could only get together about $1,000, which is half of what it cost. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell it cheaper or let him pay later. But the druggist said, no, I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it. So Heinz got desperate, broke into the man's store to steal the drug for Maggie. So my question is, was Heinz right or wrong to steal the drugs for Maggie? Thinking about Kohlberg's model of moral development, what makes you think this? So in testing stage, the stage that people are at, people are confronted with moral dilemmas, and their decisions in these dilemmas will reflect what stage they're at. So what would you do? Would you steal it? Would you think that that's okay or not? And remembering moral development. Okay, so if you decided to steal it, you'd probably be at the post-conventional level. But if you decided not to, you would be at the conventional level, right? So let's move on to another dilemma, or this second part of this dilemma. The doctor finally got some of the radium drug for Maggie, but it didn't work, and there was no other treatment known to medicine that could save her. The doctor knew that she only had about 6 months to live. Maggie was in terrible pain, but she was so weak that a good dose of painkiller like ether or morphine would make her die sooner. She was delirious and almost crazy with pain. In her calm periods, Maggie would ask the doctor to give her enough ether to kill her. She said she couldn't stand the pain and she was going to die in a few months anyway. The question is, should the doctor do what Maggie asks and help her die to end her pain? And thinking about Kohlberg's theory of moral development, what makes you think this? So again, will I be following the rules? Will I be behaving ethically regardless of the rules, regardless of what others think? We go on further in our dilemma. While all this was happening, Heinz, Maggie's husband, was in jail for stealing the medicine. He was sentenced to 10 years, but after a couple of years, he escaped from prison and went to live in another part of the country under a new name. It turns out that Heinz becomes your neighbor, and you become friends. One day he tells you his story, and he confides that he is an escaped convict. Should you report Heinz to the police? Would you do so? Thinking about Kohlberg's theory of moral development, what makes you think this? And let me tell you, these things seem to be somewhat cut and dry, but across the classes where I've taught, there are some people who believe there's no reason that you would ever steal. It is morally wrong. And they stay at the conventional level, while other people think, of course, I would steal the money, because why should the druggist get 10 times more money than he deserves? Or can't he just come down, or I pay later? And so talking about that was really interesting. You think in terms of your own culture and your own upbringing and what you've learned, but there are different ways that people look at things. So these are small little vignettes, but they have lots of deep and rich information involved in them around how people grow up and what their moral development is based on. So the model is proposed to be universal, that the levels are always achieved in a sequence. But it really is not universal in terms of all the levels being achieved by all cultures. So there was a cross-cultural meta-analysis that revealed that among 27 cultures that were assessed, in no groups was the adult level at level 1. So children might be at level 1, but adults always move beyond level 1 in these studies. Children were generally at level 1. In all cultural groups, there were adults at level 2. So following the rules, not just what was best for them, very individualistic, but what were the rules? What was best, the morals of my culture? Every urban Western sample had at least some adults at level 3, but no tribal societies had any adults at level 3. So we might not find this in Alaska, which would be really interesting to check out, but Western society seems more apt to move towards the post-conventional level, where you're just saying, I'm going to work on my own, use my own mind and not worry about what others think. Whereas more very collectivist societies seem to be more towards the conventional level of, if I don't follow the rules, something will break down. So I'm going to stop here right now, and then we'll continue in a little bit.